On this week's Eastern Conference edition of Locked On NHL, we are going to name our top breakout candidates.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back. Another edition of Locked On NHL, your team every day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's Wednesday, September 4th. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me 5 days a week over at Locked On Ottawa Senators. As always, it's the Battle of Ontario edition. With me from Locked On Maple Leafs, it's Mike DiStefano. Mikey, how's it going today, fella?
What's going on, buddy? It's hump day, middle of the week. We've got football coming up this weekend, so you got your Bears hat ready to go for week one. You're a diehard Bears fan all of a sudden, eh?
Yeah, all of a sudden, buddy. Locked On Bears got me into it, and here we go. I wanted to pick a team that wasn't a perennial contender. I wanted someone with some hope, though. I didn't want to just go out there, roll over, and watch losses week in, week out. So I'm fired up. Football season's here. You know, we've got Locked On shows on every NFL team, but hockey's around the corner, too. Already seeing some of the informal captain skates happening around the league. Players are making their way back to their respective cities. We've got rookie tournament, not this weekend, but next, all across the NHL. It's a fun time of year, but I mean, the hockey world, though, it has been in tragedy and in mourning over the last week. We've been covering it wall to wall here on Locked On NHL. The tragic passing of Johnny and his brother Matthew Gaudreau, Columbus Blue Jackets star, father, son, husband. And it's as tragic as it gets. But one thing that I keep going back to is that it's in awful moments like these where the hockey world comes together. And last night we saw a shining example of that with Cole Caulfield.
Yeah. Cole Caulfield comes out and says that he's going to be changing his number for the upcoming season, and he's going to be honoring Johnny Gaudreau by wearing the number 13. So Cole Caulfield, who it does not surprise me one bit to know that Johnny Gaudreau was someone who he looked up to. Both, very similar builds, right? A small guy who was able to get it done. They both came up through the American hockey system, so doesn't surprise me at all that Johnny Gaudreau was someone that Caulfield looked up to, and I'm sure did not take the news lightly when he heard about it last Friday. So in honor of him, he's gonna sport the number, which number 13 being available in Montreal is somewhat of a shock. Also,
well, I'll get to that. There's actually I dug into that a little bit, but he also wore 13 at the U.S. national team program when he was 16, 17 because of Johnny Hockey. And it almost, it's so poetic too, because he's that American small statured goal scoring star player, Hobie Baker winner, just like Johnny Hockey was. And they're stars of Canadian teams like Johnny was in Calgary, and now Cole doing the same in Montreal. So I thought that was a very, very classy gesture from Caulfield. The two actually got to play with each other for the first time ever just this May at the World Championship. So we're thinking about everybody in the hockey world right now, especially the Gaudreau family, as they navigate just a senseless, avoidable tragedy. So the last message I want on that is do not drink and drive. I've been saying that at the end of Locked On Sens. It's just there's no excuse, no reason for it, and you can save lives with that. You mentioned number 13 with Montreal. Mike, I'm pretty sure it's the same as how hotels, some of them don't have a 13th floor. Do you know that the Montreal Canadiens, as a historic franchise as they are, went nearly 100 years without a single person wearing number 13?
Was it Camilleri?
No, Camilleri's one of a few, but they went from 1922. They had a player wear number 13 back in 1922, and then not again until 2009 when Alex Tanguay took the number. And since then, it's just kind of bounced around. Mike Camilleri, Mike Brown, Alexander Semin, Max Domi, Cedric Paquette, and last year, Mitchell Stevens. Interesting for a team with so much history. You thought all the old numbers. I mean, they've retired 13 numbers.
No, I know. It's I guess lucky that the number was not retired, and it allowed Cole Caulfield to rock that number, and he'll probably go down as the best number 13 in Montreal history, I would assume, if his career takes off the way that we expect it to, I should say.
So, breakout candidates. There's no easy transition from that. Obviously, we're going to be, for the entirety of the season and beyond, remembering the life and legacy of Johnny Gaudreau, his brother Matthew passing as well in that tragic accident. But we do have the season coming up, and breakout candidate may as well start with the Montreal Canadiens. We're talking about Cole Caulfield. Who is it for you on the Habs here that could pop off?
Well, would Juraj Slafkovsky be considered a breakout candidate for you? Like, he kind of started to break out at the end of last season, but I think this year he really could be in for one. Like,
I think it's all about what your expectations are, right? Like, if you think a 50-point guy is going to all of a sudden jump to an 80, 90-point guy, I mean, that's still breaking out again.
Yeah, I mean, it's more the goals for me. Like, he went from a 20 goal scorer last year. I think he could get up to 30, 35 goals this year. And I think that would be considered, that true breakout, where, okay, he's now a 30 goal scorer, 35 goal scorer. And you just look at what he was able to do at the end of last season. He really started to figure it out in the NHL. Now you give him a full off season, a full training camp. You give him 82 games. I think this guy's got 35 in him for sure. So I think Juraj Slafkovsky, the number one overall pick that 2 years ago people were looking at and saying, maybe he's a bust. I don't think so. I think it just took him a little bit to figure it out in the NHL on the smaller ice surface. And now that he has, I mean, he's got a great shot. He's a big body. I think that Juraj Slafkovsky is going to have a big time season. So I like him to be their kind of breakout candidate.
Okay, I'll just throw a second name out there just in case. And injuries are the big thing here. But Kirby Dach felt like he was starting to figure it out, and then obviously suffered that season-ending injury just 2 games into his campaign. So I'm going to be looking at those two guys, 2 young players who, if the Habs are going to exceed expectations this year, those 2 will have to be a breakout candidate. Okay, where do you want to go next, Mikey, in the Atlantic Division?
I mean, we could go to the Boston Bruins, I guess. Montreal, Boston. That always makes sense to equate each other to that. And the thing is, it's a veteran team, so there's not a lot of breakout candidates. There's a lot of people on that team, a lot of players that just are what they are, and they're going to be what they are. But there's a couple youngsters that are making their way through that team, and one who I think might be in for a bit of a bigger season, again, health permitted, would be Matthew Poitras. Turned himself into an everyday NHLer. He started out really good last season. He got that 9-gamer, and he was able to play it out, and then went to the World Championships, the Junior World Championships. So I think Matthew Poitras now, as an everyday NHLer, should be in for a pretty good season for the Bruins.
I agree with that pick. For the Buffalo Sabres, how about Zach Benson? Making the NHL at 18 is one thing. I thought he had a great rookie season. 30 points for him, but I've been watching him since he played for the Winnipeg Ice, and this guy has top line upside. I see him as easily hitting 50 points if he's healthy, if not more. Now, kind of a strange quirk statistically, the Sabres didn't have a single 60-point score this year. They had 2 guys with 59 to tie for the team lead in Alex Tuch and Rasmus Dahlin. Now, Tuch missed 7 games, but still, and obviously Tage Thompson, we talked about him in bounce back candidates, only 56 from him. So I think if you're getting those players who are already at the top to elevate back up, well, they're going to get some assists on some Benson goals and the other way around. But I see Zach Benson as a true breakout candidate this season.
Yeah, I think I kind of circled the same player for the Buffalo Sabres. The other guy who you could look at is maybe Jack Quinn. Really talented player, scored like 50 goals in junior once upon a time for the Ottawa 67. So possibly you could see Jack Quinn turn back into that huge goal scorer in the NHL. But I'm with you. I think Zach Benson would be my number 1 pick there.
Let's give them some respect as the reigning Stanley Cup champions. But look, this is a team that's like pretty veteran heavy, and they've had guys break out over the past 2 seasons, like Gustav Forsling, like Anton Lundell, even Ito Luosterainen. But Who is it for you that you think could take another step forward this year?
I mean, I guess another step forward, like Anton Lundell could be that guy, honestly, could be that guy to kind of take a step. But how about somebody who, under the radar, quietly signed a deal with the Florida Panthers this past season? Really cheap deal, really young player who has an immense skill set. How about Adam Boquist? Could Adam Boquist kind of finally put it together here with the Florida Panthers? Former first round pick, top 10 pick. He's bounced around on a couple of teams, didn't work in Chicago, didn't work in Columbus. It seems to always work out for these bounce around players who once they land in Florida. I mean, Carter Verhaeghe is a perfect example of it working out, right? You saw the jump that Sam Reinhart had when he got there. Gustav Forsling was kind of a similar player, bounced around, finally landed in Florida, and then it just worked out. Like it just, I don't know why it always does. Sam Bennett's another one. So how about Adam Boquist? Could he finally turn into, a top 4 point getting, puck moving offensive defenseman that he was drafted to be?
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I think that's a great pick, Mikey. I'm going to go for the Tampa Bay Lightning with JJ Moser. And I know he had a 30-point season in Arizona before the offseason trade for Mikhail Sergachev, but I think the sky's the limit. You're looking at a guy who made the NHL from being a 60th overall pick to stepping in right away. This guy is still only 24 years old, and he's got 3 full NHL seasons under his belt. And I think being in a more structured environment is going to help him out a ton. I think he's got a lot of upside.
Yeah, I think that he fits in pretty well on Tampa's blue line. And obviously Sergachev was the big name going back in that trade to Utah that brought Moser to Tampa Bay. But he's not going to be Sergachev, I don't believe, but I do think that he'll be a much better replacement than people think at the very least.
Think about the protection that he has in front of him. Like he's got Hedman and McDonough as the other 2 left shot D. Like those are 2 defensive, and as Hedman's career goes on, I mean, he's still got great offensive instincts, but the upside of his point totals will be a little bit down. So I think Moser could sneak in on the second power play unit here and get some touches and maybe produce offensively. He's going to be a dark horse for me to hit 40 to 50 points, I think. Would be the upside for JJ Moser. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll come back with our 2 teams in the Atlantic, and I think we got Detroit left as well. And then we'll get into the Metropolitan. This is Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the ticketing app when we're looking to go to any live event, whether it's sports, music, comedy, or theater. Anything can get your tickets at Game Time. And they even have Game Time picks. It makes getting tickets even easier. Game Time picks filters out the fluff to show out incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can also check out your seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time has the best and most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. The goal is to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. So go and toggle the on all-in pricing on, and there won't be any surprise fees at checkout. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. You can find us 5 days a week. I'm at Locked On Ottawa Senators, and Mike is over at Locked On Maple Leafs. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to all of our sponsors. Support them to support us, and we're supporting some breakout candidates. I know everyone's starting to do their research ahead of fantasy hockey season, which is coming up at the end of the month. We've got Locked On Fantasy Hockey as well to navigate that. And I think that these breakout candidates will certainly have some value in later rounds of your draft. Okay, Mikey, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who's your breakout candidate in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, this is pretty easy for me. I think Matthew Nyes is in for a pretty big season. He's going to his second full year in the NHL, so I think he says he learned a lot from last year. Things got a little tired, midway through the season, coming from the college to the professional ranks. But I think he learned. I think he had to, put in a solid summer to make sure he can go full stop, 82 games. Look, the guy's got a lot of skill, and if you watched in the playoffs, the guy goes and plays the right way. He's hard nosed. He goes to the net. And if he's going to be playing in the top six, either with William Nylander or he gets a chance to play with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, the guy's just going to put up points. Like, it's just going to happen. So, and he's in the right place at the right time a lot of the time. So I think that Matthew Nyes is someone who's going to have a big time breakout season for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with that at all. You could see it, and he's got some playoff experience too. He scored a couple big goals already in his young career, second round pick, and he's really elevated his stock. And seems like that Hyman-esque type player where you can put him with really good players, and he'll elevate his game there too. So I'd bank on that to happen. With my Ottawa Senators, I'm going to take another American kid, just like you did, Jake Sanderson. For me, he's got potential to be on the U.S. Olympic team in 2026. I truly believe that he could even be on this this Four Nations thing. I think he's that good of a player. And I think last year we saw him take a step forward offensively. I think his goal totals went from 2 to 10. And I think his point totals went up a bit, not as much as I think, which gives me the breakout candidate label. I think you're looking at over 50 points with elite defensive results this year for Jake Sanderson, who Pilsy's already thrown it at me, Mikey, that like we're doing our organizational value rankings, and he's making the argument that Jake Sanderson's more valuable than Tim Stützle to the Senators organization. Like, that's how highly regarded he is right now. Brady's number one, and then it's almost a toss-up now, at least in this market, about Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson.
Yeah, that's a coin flip. It really is a coin flip. You could argue that having a number one D-man, though, more important to your organization than, I guess he's playing center. He's your number one center, but
he's a center, dude. That's the laziest argument I've ever heard. He's a center. He's a center.
Sure.
I know. I'm posting a video every day. Well, I'm posting a video every day, and today I did the Tim Stützle draft video, and Alex Trebek, the host of Jeopardy, made the pick. And in it, it's like top line potential as a winger, comparable Patrick Kane. It's like, this guy's a centerman. He's so good down the middle. He's got 90-point season under his belt, despite regressing last year, dealing with some wrist issues. But 18 goals for Timmy was wild. So I had him as a bounce back candidate, but I think Jake Sanderson is sky's the limit for him with what his skating is, his stamina. He's sick. So I'm going to shout him out as well. And Detroit's final team for us in the Atlantic Division. Do you have one locked and loaded for them?
Yeah, I do. It was kind of tough to find. Like, it's such a veteran team. It's so weird for a team that's been rebuilding for so long to just be such a veteran laden team. But like, Simon Edvinsson is a guy when he got drafted, I really liked, and then last season got a chance to play a little bit in the NHL. This will be his first full season, I believe, in the show. So he's someone who I think could turn into, a top four defenseman and really establish himself in Detroit. Like last year, you saw the breakout from Lucas Raymond, or else he would have been my pick. And we already know Mo Seider's an absolute stud. So for me, Simon Edvinsson, I think, is the guy who turns into, a bona fide top four defenseman for Detroit.
I think that his upside is outrageous. 6'6", great skater, defenseman like that, and kind of like where I said with Sanderson, where it's like the third and fourth year is where you're really going to start to see it pop. I think we might need one more year of Edvinsson getting used to the NHL game before being able to see him in that role. But I like the pick still, and I don't really have a better one unless you're looking at maybe a surprise guy to come out of nowhere and really make an impact. Like this Brandsack Nygaard. Hey, Brandsack Nygaard, don't be surprised if this guy makes the team as an 18-year-old. I think he's that good. His shot's elite. He's got some preseason hype going with what he was doing over in Norway. And I just think that there's some upside that, look, I know of all people and all organizations, Detroit's probably going to take the patient route, but he might not give them much of an option. I think even if it's a 9-game tryout, that sort of thing. but I'll be
Yeah.
curious to see Brad Sagnegaard. I really liked him through the draft process, and I think he's got that pro-ready frame. He's already played in the SHL, and he could be a guy who makes the jump over to the NHL sooner rather than later. Okay, that's the Atlantic Division. We got the Metropolitan coming up next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. Okay, Metropolitan Division, the New York Rangers. Let's start with them. Is this the year Capo Caco will break out?
Oh, man. Probably not. Sadly, probably not. I just, Capo Caco, I think he just needs a change of scenery. Like, it could happen. I just don't think it's going to happen in New York. I think he's buried in the lineup at this point, third, fourth line. There's not a lot of space for him to jump in the lineup either. So, sadly, no. I don't know why they don't move on from this and just cut their losses, but don't think it's the Capo Caco breakout season. But I do think that we could see a bit of a breakout, possibly from a guy. I guess you can't really. Alexi broke out last year, right? But like, could we see an even bigger jump from him? Like what we saw in the playoffs, I think makes me believe, like, okay, could he get to be, an 80-point guy this year? I don't think it's out of the question.
No, I don't think so either. I think that's a good pick. I was looking at him because it's that same thing. It's what you believe the breakout could be. I mean, he had 57 points last year. If he has 80, that's absolutely a breakout. So
Yeah,
I like
so
that
I'm
pick.
we'll roll with Alexi Lafreniere, and again, what he was doing in the playoffs, like just the way that he was asserting himself, like his body's becoming, he's growing into it, and he's starting to really learn where to go and how to play the game at the NHL level, and you saw it in the playoffs. He was one of the better players for the New York Rangers. I think he'll just continue to get more and more opportunity, more and more ice time. He's not just going to be playing 14 minutes a night anymore like he was in his first couple of seasons in the NHL. He'll be a full-time NHL. I think he's slated to stick on a line with Artemi Panarin right now, Panarin and Trocheck. So he should be able to pick up some points and fill the net.
I like that. The New York Islanders. I'm going to go with Seaman Holmstrom. Now, this is a team that not necessarily has that many young players. It's an older team, but Holmstrom came in, played 75 games last year after 50 the year before. He jumped from 9 to 25 points. So what's stopping him from taking another step forward? I like the player. I think he brings speed. He brings some other elements, and he didn't play a whole lot, only averaging 13 minutes a game. So if he can find a way to get out on the ice a little bit more, I think their first round pick from 2019 could take a step towards 40, 45 points.
Who the heck is Maxim Siplikov? I've never heard of this player in my life.
Me neither.
Nope. He must have just came over. He's slated to be in the top 6 right now, according to Daily Faceoff for this team. So maybe a Max Siplikov, Maxim Siplikov.
The TSY is tough.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's a Siplikov.
He had 47 points in 65 games with Spartak Moscow in the KHL last year.
Yeah, so we'll see. Possibly.
Okay, that's your guy. All right,
Sure.
let's stay in the tri-state area there. The New Jersey Devils. I mean, they added so many veteran pieces this offseason, from Brett Pesce to Brendan Dillon to Jacob Markstrom. Probably missing a few just off the top of my head, but is there a breakout candidate for you?
Yeah, a breakout candidate for me. I mean, like, Luke Hughes, could Luke Hughes become like a top point getting defenseman here? Now it's going to be tough. Obviously, he did have a stellar season last year. Actually, I forgot he had that many points. Yeah, 47 points as a rookie defenseman.
Dash 25 though. If he gets 55 points and he's plus 25, I think you could call that a breakout.
Yeah, but I think also like Dougie, probably with him coming back, Dougie Hamilton will probably cut into some of that PP1 time for Luke Hughes. So maybe we don't see that happen, as much, but like could Simon Nemec turn into a stellar defenseman for them? I mean, he's a little bit down on the depth chart right now, but could he still just give you solid 16 or so minutes for this group? Or what about Dawson Mercer? who seemed like he was going to be a breakout candidate a couple of years ago, had a little bit of a down season last year, started off really, really slow, but then picked it up at the end of the year. If he's playing on line with Jack Hughes, you could see Dawson Mercer, turn into a 25, 60-point guy
I like
potentially. So
that
I
too.
like that as well.
The Pittsburgh Penguins, Rutger McGroarty. This guy's going to have a target on his back, and he loves playing the villain. Obviously, the situation in Winnipeg wouldn't sign, gets traded for a guy who was picked with the same draft pick that he was just 1 year later, but he signed. He's going to be an impact player, and I think that Kyle Dubas and Mike Sullivan are going to give him every opportunity to play in that top six. So I think we could see a 40, 50, 55-point season from Rutger McGroarty as a rookie.
I like it. So you're thinking Rutger McGroarty could potentially give you some Calder odds? You've looked into that? I mean, he's going to give you 50, 60 points. I mean, that's Calder
55
consideration,
is where I stopped getting crazy.
55 is still Calder consideration these days, brother.
The next team we're talking about might tell you their rookie might get 150. So we'll get to Philly in a sec.
Is that where we're at? Are we at the Philadelphia Flyers at this point?
Yeah, I think so, and it's got to be Matvei Michkov, right? He's one of the most exciting, intriguing prospects across hockey right now. You got to think that he could potentially have a Kirill Kaprizov-esque rookie season. I know he's a couple years younger when he came over than when Kaprizov came over when he was 23. Matvei Michkov's just 19, 20. But could he get like Kaprizov had 51 points in 55 games? Like, I don't think it's crazy for Michkov to have 70 points.
No, it's honestly not. Like, there's not a whole lot he's got around him, I guess. Like, what is Sean Couturier at this point in his career? Then outside of that, I guess, Owen Tippett, a good player, and Konechny, decent, but how many players is he going to end up? Is he going to play with those guys? Right now, he's slated to be alongside Couturier and Tyson Forster, but I do like Matvei Michkov. Like, he's the guy for sure. I'm circling on FanDuel as my number one target to bet on for Rookie of the Year. I do like that pick a lot. I would say another player, Bobby Brink, who had 11 goals last year. This guy can score, man. This guy can shoot the pill. I think Bobby Brink is a potential 20-plus goal scorer himself. So I think Bobby Brink is another one who could possibly get himself into a breakout contender status.
The Washington Capitals. Who do you got?
The Capitals. So I was looking at two different guys here. I was thinking maybe is this the season that Connor McMichael breaks out into a bona fide top six guy. But you know what? I really like Hendrix Lapierre.
Me
I
too.
think Hendrix Lapierre, like I remember his draft year. I loved the tape, as they say. I really thought that he was going to become a good player. Injuries were kind of his issue, early in his career. Last season, he was able to play a bunch of games, luckily. And I think now he comes in and he'll have opportunity, right, to play an everyday role in the top nine. So I think Hendrix Lapierre, who had just 8 goals last year, just 22 points, he's someone I could see, get into that 20-ish goal echelon this upcoming season. So I like Lapierre.
There's some options, though, even of guys who already are established, but it's probably more bounce backs for Dubois, Chikrin, and all that, because we know they're good players. It's less being able to break out and more being able to get back to the types of players that you expect them, frankly, to be. All right, where are we at now? We've covered most of the Eastern Conference. That one team who we've missed, the Carolina Hurricanes. Oh, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll get to both of those shortly, but let's start with Carolina. Who's your breakout candidate there?
The Carolina Hurricanes, who lost a lot this offseason too. Like you're looking at the team and it's like, I don't remember them being so thin. And it's interesting where this team is at this point. Breakout candidates for them, like it's so difficult to pick. It's another team that's full of a bunch of veterans, realistically. But I think
I got one for you if you want, just because I've got a great stat to back it up.
Okay, I'm assuming it's not Jack Drury because he was kind of the guy that I was looking at.
No, I'm looking at a guy who's replacing one of their top line players. Teuvo Teravainen leaves.
Yeah.
Seth Jarvis is going to pop off this year. He just got his new ticket. Get this stat, Mikey.
He had 33 goals last year. How much
he's
better
going to score 40
be?
plus? He's scoring 40 plus easy this year.
Wow.
When Seth Jarvis scores a goal in the regular season, the Carolina Hurricanes are 48-3-4 all time.
It's pretty good.
That's outrageous.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. I will say.
And I don't think he's played that much with Sebastian Aho. I could be so wrong on that. I'm looking it up right now. But I feel like he's kind of been able to do that in a secondary situation.
Yeah, look, he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, a terrific player. But 40 goals seems like a tad high.
You're just mad that the Leafs traded that pick to get rid of Marlowe's contract. It's okay.
He was the Marlowe pick. And yes, that does haunt Maple Leafs fans to this day. Yes.
Hey, Jarvis played 550 minutes with Aho more than anyone else on the Hurricanes in the last 3 years.
Couple minutes with him.
Yeah, just 1,670.
Yeah, couple.
In the last 3 years. Let me see just this last year, though. Come on. I can't be. Can I be that wrong? Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Totally.
200 more minutes with him than with Jordan Staal. Anyways, he's still sick, and he's still going to pop off.
I mean, it's been a couple of tough years for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like a few years ago, you mentioned it, Kivelniks, with the unfortunate situation with the fireworks that cost his life, and then Johnny Gaudreau last week. And, it's not the same, but you had the Mike Babcock stuff last year going into training camp, which I'm sure, put them behind the 8 ball to start the year. So, it's just been 3 tough years in a row where this team has dealt with something. And they've had to try and overcome stuff over the last couple seasons. So, mentally we'll see where this team is at. But Adam Fantilli, if he can get in the right mindset, I believe he could certainly have a massive sophomore breakout.
Let us know in the comments who your top breakout candidates are across the Eastern Conference. Starting next week, we will get to our season previews. Lots to get into. We are just about a month away from the opening face-off of the regular season, and we will have you covered 5 days a week over here at Locked On NHL. Coming up tomorrow is Locked On Power Rankings every Thursday with Chris Michelli. He'll have everything for you there, and we've also got a week full of great content. Every Friday, Gil Martin will be back with Erica Lindsay Ayala. They'll have their women's hockey spotlight and a whole lot more. So it's local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week here at Locked On NHL. That's Mike DiStefano. For more from him, go check out Locked On Maple Leafs. You can find me at Locked On Ottawa Senators. I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Eastern Conference edition of Locked On NHL, your team every day.